Hey there, Warblers. How are you doing out there at home? You know what time it is. When you turn on this video, you know that it is math time. Our lesson for this week will be comparing the values of numbers with fractions versus numbers that have decimals. Fraction versus decimal. Okay? We know that comparing numbers means that we are finding out which number of 2, usually, which number of 2 is greater. Or we sometimes might find out when we compare them that they are exactly equal to each other. All right, so we're going to show you how to do that today when you have one number that's in fraction form and one that is in decimal form. Okay, and you need to find out which one's greater. We also know that fractions and decimals they share this special relationship. They each have this awesome ability to show us numbers that are less than 1, but also greater than 0. They do this in different ways. They take on different forms to tell us the same thing, really. So comparing them is not always very easy. We can't always just look at the fraction and then at the decimal and say, oh, I know which one is greater, in the way that we would if they were both in decimal form, or if they were both in broken into tenths. Easy to tell, right? Sometimes it might be pretty straightforward, like my first example here. We have 2/3 versus 4/100ths. And as long as you know that this is 4/100ths, and this is says 2/3, you'll know right away that having 2/3 of something is much more than having 4/100ths of something. So you could easily, as long as you know the concept of fractions and decimals, tell that this here, 2/3, is greater than 4/100ths. And we can use the symbol to show that. All right? But today, and that wouldn't be much of a challenge, just like I know that last week for y'all, comparing two numbers that were both in decimal form was not too much of a challenge. But today I'm going to challenge you by having comparing a fraction and a decimal that are actually on your worksheet and in this lesson here will be very close together in value. So we'll have to dig a little bit deeper to find out which one really is greater, or if they really are equal to each other. All right, so let's start with 2/9. Well, I guess we're not starting with it. I already showed you one example, but let's go on to 2/9 versus 0.25. 2/9 versus 0.25. So one fraction, one decimal. Now, when we compare two numbers that are in different formats, fraction versus decimal, we need to change one into the other, into the form of the other, so that we can look at them side by side. Today we're going to take the decimal number and change that into a fraction number, since we already have some background info on that. And then we'll be able to much more easily compare them. Okay? So if I want to change 0.25 into a fraction, what I can say to myself is, well, I know that what I'm looking at here is 25/100ths. Okay? So I can go ahead and change this into, because the 5 is in the hundredths spot. So I know that this whole thing here I could say is 25/100ths. Okay, that's as far over as it goes. So I could say that this is 25/100. All right, and I'll just leave it like that. I won't even. You could reduce it here, but let's pretend that we forgot, or we're not realizing to reduce it. You could reduce it if you wanted to. So now I'm down to comparing 25/100ths versus, and this is 2/9 can just stay as 2/9, and I'm not going to reduce that anymore. That can't be reduced. So we have 2/9 versus 25/100ths now. Okay. And now what we get down to is we have two different fractions that we are comparing. And we know that one thing we can do, a quick method that we can be sure works, is the butterfly method, right? Let me grab another pen here. We'll make a nice, beautiful purple butterfly. Okay, so, oh my gosh, that wound up being brown. Well, we'll go with it. Brown butterfly. All right, so I'm going to multiply 2 by 10, and we know that that's going to be 200 over here. Okay, so on this left side I have 200, and over on the right side, well, I have 25 times 9. Well, let's go ahead and use algorithm to figure that out and make sure. So 25 times 9. 9 times 5 is 45. Bring down the 5, carry the 4. 9 times 2, 18. So 18 plus 4 is 22. So I get 225 over here. So now, with my butterfly method, I can tell that the right side is greater, the 25 hundredths, which is really my 0.25 or 0.25 or 25 hundredths. So now I know that, after several different steps, I can tell you with most certainty that 0.25 is greater than 2/9. Okay? So we had a couple different steps. We had to change the decimal number into a fraction. Then we had to do butterfly method. And in doing butterfly method, we had some pretty large numbers. So I had to use algorithm down here. Could have also counted by 25s. It's a pretty friendly number. All right. So that's how you can find out. So convert and then butterfly. Okay, let's try one more today. I'm doing this on Monday night. I said tonight. All right, so try to actually find the purple marker this time for our beautiful purple butterfly. There we go. Okay. The second one. Let's go with 1/7 versus actually, you know what we'll do? Let's make this 2 and 1/7 versus 2 and 2.17. So I've got all the same digits here, okay? So this might get, looking at it, it's kind of a little bit confusing or trippy, but we can do it. So the first thing we can do to say to ourselves is just forget about those whole numbers. They're equal to each other. So what really matters is 1/7 versus 0.17. Is 17 hundredths greater than 1/7? That's the question, or is it not? Or are they equal? Doesn't look like they're going to be equal to me, but you never know. So let's investigate. So again, the whole numbers here are equal, so let's just forget about them. Let's not bring them, let's not involve them, okay? So 17 hundredths is what we have here for 0.17. And over here I still have, I don't need to change 1/7. The question is, which one's greater? We will butterfly it, okay? So 17, I can already see that over here I'm going to have 100. It's 1 times 100. Now I just need to figure out 7 times 17 and see if that's greater than 100 as I'm comparing these. So let's go 17 times 7. 7 times 7 is 49. So we'll go bring down the 9, carry the 4. 1 times 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. So over here, my antenna is 119. Okay, so again, on the decimal side is going to be greater again this time. 119 versus 100 in our butterfly method. So we can see that 2 and 1/7 would be less than 2.17. Okay. There we go. So this is what you'll be working on your worksheet, and it'll be interesting. It'd be cool to see if you can guess ahead of time which one is greater than the other, and see if your your prediction winds up being right. Most of them on the worksheet are pretty close together. Some of them are a little bit farther apart. So try to take a stab at that. Okay. Good luck. I'll see you next time.